Welcome, everyone. My name is Samantha Oakley. I'm a project director with ALA's Public Programs Office. Today's webinar is Navigating Misinformation Online, Toolkit Resources for Impactful Library Programming. Today's session is brought to you by MediaWise at the Poynter Institute, ALA's Public Programs Office, and Stanford Social Media Lab through support from Stanford Impact Labs and the Empowering Diverse Digital Citizens Lab. A couple of notes about our virtual classroom. Only our presenters have microphone access, but you are welcome to type your questions in the Q&A box or comments in the chat. If you have any technical issues, please use the Q&A window to communicate with ALA. To send a message through the Q&A feature, move your cursor to the bottom of the Zoom window and click Q&A. Please do not put technical questions in the chat window as they could get missed there. You are welcome to type your questions that you may have throughout the presentation in the Q&A box. However, we will be saving those until the very end of the presentation when we will have time for a formal Q&A. Finally, we are recording this session, so please feel free to watch it again or share it with your colleagues. We'll send out an email with a link to the recording, and you can always access it for free on Programming Librarian under the Learning tab. Now, I'd like to turn things over to Fajing to discuss the surveys we have been asking you to do for this session and the evaluation.
Hi everyone, this is Fajing Chu. I'm a postdoc researcher at Stanford Social Media Lab. My research focuses on digital literacy and how to cultivate informed publics in today's era. And excited to be with you today. And I recently received my PhD from University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I'm a proud mom of a 2-year-old boy. First, I would like to thank you for being here for the webinar. I know many of you are on the desk helping patrons and have many programs or proposals that need your attention, especially during the summer ready season. We appreciate you taking the time to join us. Over the past 1.5 years, we Stanford Social Media Lab have been passionately developing the toolkit in collaboration with Sam and Megan at ELA and Sean at Poynter. 12 library workers across the country, many of them are here today, join our advisory board to advise us on this toolkit. We're incredibly excited to share it with you today. And this is the first time we are launching this webinar. We're excited to see whether the toolkit works and whether it is useful. So the survey is our key to understand its effectiveness, and we will greatly appreciate your participation in the survey to provide your feedback. The survey consists of 2 parts. The link to the first part is on the slides and also is in the chat. It includes general questions about combating falsehood and digital literacy. It will take about 5 minutes, while the second part will be released at the end of the webinar. It will be a bit longer. We really appreciate you as the professionals who work closely with patrons in the community. And you are the ones at the forefront of engaging with them on important concerns prior to 2024 election. And your insights are incredibly valuable and will directly contribute to evaluating and improving our toolkit. I'm here to answer questions and concerns that you may have about the survey, and please feel free to message me or ask questions. And thank you very much for your time and support. Your participation truly matters and will help us make a significant impact. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your cooperation in that. And I'll start slightly slower launch in so that you can wrap that up as you're able to. We'll get some of our introductions out of the way and everything so we can get started. We've set up this session here as roughly 45 minutes to an hour with some time added in to give you some space to get the post survey completed and to stay on for some questions and answers if you have any of those coming in. So welcome to this session. My name is Sean Marcus, and first of all, thank you all for being here. I am beyond thrilled to introduce this toolkit that we've been working on for some time now in partnership with ALA and with the ALA Programming Librarian. This is just such an exciting day for us. I am the interactive learning designer at MediaWise. Just a very brief introduction to myself while you're wrapping up the surveys. I have been working with MediaWise on and off for about 4 or 5 years. First joined them doing some course development with our MediaWise Voter Project and MediaWise for Seniors project, in which we developed some fact-checking courses and certificate courses for first-time voters and senior citizens around the 2020 election. Prior to joining the staff at MediaWise, I spent a almost full career as a high school journalism teacher, English teacher, and media literacy teacher. So I am very happy to be here on the team with MediaWise now full-time. I've also been the director of the Poynter Institute's high school journalism program for about the past 5 years, and have assisted in some way, shape, or form for about 20 years. So once again, I am very excited to be here. I'm excited to bring this toolkit to this audience, and hopefully you will see the use out of that we can get out of it today. So, and there I am on Grandfather Mountain, enjoying not misinformation and a brief moment of peace and quiet and fresh air from the very busy online world of misinformation. So starting off with a little bit of fun, I wanted to kind of get a sense if anybody caught Katy Perry at the Met Gala this year. Here's the tweet: Katy Perry, that's it. Hashtag Met Gala. I know this tweet took off and blew up quite a bit, to the point Katy Perry's mother actually liked it, and I believe even reshared it. Some exciting stuff, and she's always representing in her beautiful gowns. I'm not a huge Met Gala fan, so I can't speak to exactly who else was there, but it looks like she kind of won the show. I'm assuming that many of you know the secret here, which is that this is an AI generated image that was posted initially. This is the first user who posted it, and this image was then reposted, shared. Katy Perry herself liked it, probably aware of the fact that this was an AI image. She knew she wasn't at the Met Gala, but so many people did not. This blew up and fizzled out fairly quickly, within a matter of hours, actually. There were some telltale signs that this was not this year's Met Gala. The color of the carpet was wrong. Some other key indicators there. A lot of us speculated that this was there should be, I see a question of the picture on the screen. We should be seeing the screenshot of the tweet of Katy Perry at the Met Gala. Okay, good. So yes, a lot of speculation here that there could have been some advertisement, some promotional material, as the person who posted this did then go on to post release dates for Katy Perry's new albums and everything. But it showed how fast and how absolutely how quickly this AI generated image could pick up steam and put Katy Perry at the Met Gala when she did not attend, was not there. And I don't believe this dress, as beautiful as it is, actually exists. It did fit the theme though, didn't it? So the fun of it was, like I say, widely. Katy Perry liked it, her mom liked it, reshared it. This was a pretty entertaining, pretty no harm, no foul, everybody was happy with it kind of image. But it illustrates, for so many of us, in such a very simple way, the speed and danger of misinformation traveling, especially with AI now, which is one of the modules in this toolkit that we'll look a little bit more closely at today. I wanted to bring this up and show it because I think it's always kind of fun, and we like to try to approach our topics here with a range of ideas. We'll talk about that a little bit further on as well. But to come in with a fairly safe example of Katy Perry at the or not at the Met Gala, and then to draw in an audience that might be a little more resistant to looking at some other examples right out the gate. But we do want to recognize immediately that the simple, safe Katy Perry example is one thing, but we look at deep fakes and manipulated video during election time, which is absolutely a huge press for this year, as we have more elections across the globe than any other year coming up, and we are seeing already misinformation, specifically in the form of AI generated misinformation, deepfakes, manipulated video popping up across the globe. This leads to truly life or death consequences. This leads to arrests. This leads to potential impacts on elections globally. So immediately going from Katy Perry at the Met Gala, which can entertain and can bring us in and can gather our interest, we understand, of course, the importance of being aware of misinformation, and especially this rise in AI-generated misinformation on a global scale, and the serious impact that it can have. So just giving you a little bit of an introduction and the kickoff here. Let's do a quick overview of what we'll be covering today. We'll be looking at MediaWise as a group and what we do specifically. We'll cover that fairly quickly, and then we'll dive into what the toolkit is, where you can find it. We'll look at some specific uses that you might be able to apply in your library, and then we'll do a couple test runs, what's under the hood. We'll look at one of the slide deck demonstrations, and we'll look at one of the open educational resource pages, and I'll walk through that with you all so you can see some potential cases or ways that you would be able to use that in your library. So MediaWise, our mission is to empower diverse communities with skills to identify misinformation through engaging, innovative media literacy education. Our goal is to inspire savvy digital citizens who know that when truth prevails, democracy wins. Our mission statement pretty clearly demonstrates what we're all about. We started as a group project out of the Poynter Institute for Media Studies in St. Petersburg, Florida, nonprofit journalism school and research organization that also houses PolitiFact, the International Fact-Checking Network, the Craig Newmark Center for Ethics and Journalism, and is also the owner of the Tampa Bay Times, our newspaper here in Tampa Bay. We started in 2018 with the ambitious goal of reaching teenagers and teaching them fact-checking skills in the social media platforms where they exist and live their lives, right? So the Teen Fact-Checking Network was the first major project out of MediaWise. That is where we recruited a group of students to investigate, write, and produce fact checks. They live on the social media platforms that young people are using. So we have always remained nimble and kind of moving. When we started, it was Instagram, Facebook, some Twitter. And we have now moved even more primarily to TikTok, still on Instagram. But essentially our goal when we started was where the teenagers are, we follow them, where our audience is, we follow them. And that's been a mission that we've maintained throughout. We have grown through different projects and different partnerships over the years. In 2020, 21, we had the MediaWise Voter Project, MediaWise for Seniors. We also started a campus correspondence program for college students. In 2022, we began our MediaWise International program, which has grown a bit, I'll talk about. And we also introduced the MediaWise en Español program with specific content and material for Spanish speakers. In 2023, we saw even more international growth, which I will share a little bit with you. And we also announced the partnership that we have here with the American Library Association that has culminated in today's release of the toolkit. A couple quick overviews, and I'll brush through this fairly quickly so we can get to all the good stuff. We have expanded that Teen Fact-Checking Network to Germany, Brazil, India, Spain, Canada. We have some other countries even in the works here. So we have partners that house and run their own teen fact-checking networks globally, internationally now, which is phenomenal. Here in the States, we started a partnership in 2022 with PBS. So they used our media literacy videos and lessons and the teen fact checkers to start their series through PBS NewsHour Student Reporting Labs. And in 2023, we released a specific series on the How to Internet video series. You'll actually see some of that material in the toolkit as a reference here for you to use. In 23-24, we continued some global outreach with the ICFJ Disarming Disinformation campaign. That was a Train the Trainer campaign where we brought in trainers. We went through our media literacy, fact-checking, and misinformation, disinformation detection techniques. And those trainers then went out into their communities globally, again, Africa, Southeast Asia, East Europe, MENA, the Americas, to deliver to within their communities fact-checking lessons. In 2024, we also started working with some partners in Bulgaria through a 2-year grant to start a TFCN, Teen Fact-Checking Network, and Campus Correspondent Program in Bulgaria, and to offer media literacy workshops throughout the country there as well. The Campus Correspondent Program that started in the US that we're now seeing spread out to Bulgaria and some other areas involves getting college journalists and college journalism students into newsrooms to assist in fact-checking, write articles, do research to debunk falsehoods, and to really grow their knowledge and skill, and also grow the communication of the fact-checking network and the fact-checking world. In 2024, as a matter of fact, today, the MediaWise and Espanol expansion launched. So partnering with YouTube courses, we also introduced a Spanish misinformation course that is available on YouTube and can be found on our MediaWise homepage with MediaWise in Espanol. And we brought in a couple of ambassadors and anchors from Noticias Telemundo who walk us through some misinformation detection techniques, and comes with some quizzes and handouts, all in Spanish language for Spanish speakers. So just some of the exciting projects that we've been working on here through MediaWise. And again, as a project in a group that stays nimble and really focuses on tailoring the instruction and the delivery of material to the needs of the specific audience that we are working with, I think keeps us in the forefront of fact-checking and misinformation detection, and takes us to the project that we were able to create and put together in this toolkit for our librarians and library workers. So talk a little bit about the impetus behind this and the hows and whys of what we see as such a serious issue with misinformation. First, we have a couple of surveys and studies that we conducted in collaboration with some partners, showing 62% of our respondents believe they see false or misleading information online every week. So audiences are aware that misinformation is out there and that they are consuming it. 55% of respondents say that they believe they have shared false or misleading information because they thought it was true. So we have an audience that is aware and understanding and recognizing that this is out there, and that there is a need for education and information on how to combat it. Coupled with some of the information or some of the observational ideas that we are facing, national misinformation narratives trickling down to local communities. I think this is something that we've seen trending for years now, where you have large organizations, large groups, and large misinformation and disinformation campaigns that are impacting our communities directly, and that are targeted directly to specific communities and to local communities. We saw from our survey, more than 70% of people are not confident that they can spot misinformation. So while we have 55% believing that they have probably shared it, we're into the 60% of people believing that they know that they're seeing it. 70% of people not 100% not confident that they are able to actually spot this misinformation. So we are here to try and combat that number, that 70% number there. Again, that polarization at local and national levels that we've seen increasing in the past years, it makes audience engagement very difficult. This calls back to the sort of the lighthearted, let's introduce with Katy Perry in the dress, because there's not as much of an argument over Katy Perry and her Met Gala dress. And it's difficult, we find, that accessing all audiences and really getting through the point that this is bipartisan, apolitical, that detecting misinformation is not towing any party lines, but the polarization that we see, it can make it even more challenging to engage our audiences. And then, of course, stacking on top something that we are all speeding to keep up with, which is artificial intelligence and AI, which is changing the information ecosystem, which is rapidly changing the speed and quantity of misinformation and disinformation that's coming out there. And I can promise you that by the time before we finish this webinar, we will probably see some changes in some AI technology. It seems to be moving that fast. So all of these things that we're up against that make media literacy and media literacy education in our communities and our libraries so absolutely crucial. So I'd like to talk a little bit about what media literacy in action looks like so that you can get some context for some of the skills and strategies that we try to introduce in this toolkit and in our media literacy education programs. And then we'll dive into what the toolkit really is. Starting with this foundation here that drives us in the way that we develop our educational material. We really look at very heavily at the digital inquiry group. You'll hear formally the Stanford History Education Group develop 3 questions in detecting misinformation and disinformation. And those 3 questions: who's behind the information? What is the evidence? What are other sources saying? You do not have to memorize those right now because you will hear them quite a few more times. These are really foundational to the strategies that we encourage for audiences ranging from journalists to everyday citizens coming in to be able to quickly, easily, and with facility apply a strategy to contextualizing and understanding information that they see online. These 3 questions, coupled with some of the other skills and strategies that we introduce through the toolkit and through our training, are really key to empowering our audiences to being able to detect misinformation, determine whether something is fact or fiction, and really feel empowered to know that they can confidently do that. So these 3 questions developed by the Digital Inquiry Group are very foundational to the work that we do and very foundational to what this toolkit will present. They are, and you'll see, they are not complicated. They're fairly simple and straightforward, but the structural organization and just simple application of them allows again, pretty much any user to be able to break down information, be it a simple retweet of a meme, all the way up to something maybe a little more complicated where they're going down a rabbit hole of information. Being able to hold these 3 questions in their pocket is really critical and foundational to this work. I'd like to show you a quick video of one of our campus correspondents showing us lateral reading in action. Lateral reading being one of those foundational fact-checking skills that's also included in the toolkit here that's really key to answering what are other sources saying. So Lauren, one of our campus correspondents, will explain it fairly nicely, so I'll get us to settle in. Please ping us if there are any audio issues. We did test this ahead, so you should be able to hear it. Let's take a look at lateral reading in action to answer what other sources are saying.
Hi everyone, I'm Lauren. Now, asking yourself who's behind the information, what's the evidence, and what other sources are saying are really the building blocks of any fact check. But to make sure you're getting the most credible information from the best sources, you should use a skill called lateral reading, which is another Stanford History Education Group term. Here's how it works. Most of us read up and down the page, right? We find an article and we read the top, then let's face it, kind of skim to the bottom. But fact checkers do things a little differently. They read laterally. They open up a bunch of tabs and read across all of them to learn all that they can about who's behind the information to judge if they're a good source. For example, I found this article from a website called the Babylon Bee. If you're familiar with the site, just bear with me for a sec. They reported that we only have 12 years left until experts change the timeline on global warming again. But doing a little lateral reading, I got off the site I was on, opened a fresh tab, and searched Babylon Bee to find out more about them. Then I opened another tab, and another, and pretty easily found multiple websites and articles that describe the Babylon Bee as a conservative Christian satire website. Lateral reading is a great way to make sure that when you're trying to answer question 3, what other sources are saying, that those sources are credible and actually worth your time.
All right, and we cut it there. She did mention that this does cause a mess of open tabs, but it's something that we encourage as we're teaching these fact-checking skills. Oftentimes, many people are taught read the entire article, read the about page, absolutely 100%. But we encourage users to also open tabs and go off of that main page and do some research about, not just about the person who's posting or the source of the information, but also do some research and find out what other sources are saying about who's posting the information and about the information itself. So Combined with those three questions, lateral reading being one of our foundational techniques that we encourage, going upstream, which we will not do a demonstration of, but is included in the toolkit as well, being the process of clicking through links that are included in an article, or if there are no links included, searching the keywords and phrases all the way up to the original or primary source. And again, included in the toolkit, which we're about to unveil, is some information on identifying primary and secondary sources as well. So foundationally and in a very fast nutshell, these are some of the key components of the fact-checking and misinformation detection techniques that we apply and that we use and have included in this toolkit here. So now let's get to the nitty-gritty of it and look at the toolkit itself. We'll talk about what's included in it, we'll talk about how it's organized, and we'll talk about where you can find it, how you can implement it and use it. So we have first the QR code, the link, and if we can, we will I'd like to drop the link for you into the chat as well, because I know a lot of you would like to follow along as we go through this. So I will drop that link for you. Into the chat there. So if you do want to sort of follow along and poke around as we're looking, you are more than welcome to. Let's take a look at how we've broken this down. The toolkit itself is designed to be used by library workers across the country to teach digital media literacy skills in their communities. And I pause on this because I would like to point out some of the intentional design elements that are here, so that you can have a really full understanding as you dig in on the best practices and best ways that you can use it. The toolkit is designed for both versatility and for depth of content. So what you'll find is that there are a whole lot of options, a whole lot of different ways that you can modify and use it, but we've also tried to maintain an organization that can be kind of used right out of the box as well. So as you start to dig around and see, you'll see a really wide range of resources. You'll see some like the slide decks that are downloadable, adaptable, and you'll see some like the OER, the Open Educational Resource pages, that are fixed but have perhaps more interactive activities that patrons can just step right into. You can post a link and invite them to participate in those right away. Oh, and we need to flip our page. I do apologize. We'll get your live link right up. You all were getting the sneak peek, by the way. So the landing page will flip immediately after the seminar here. The live links that are in all of the promotional material and everything that you'll be seeing, and all of the links that are active, will direct straight to the homepage of the toolkit, by the way. So because we got you guys in on the sneak peek here, you might be still going to the landing page that the rest of the world is seeing until about 4 p.m. Eastern time. So here's the link to the live toolkit that you all can follow along with. And again, you'll see that as you access that toolkit and take a look at it, these are our links to our fixed OER, Open Educational Resource pages, that you can really just drop right into a link on your library page and invite patrons to take a look at and to see. And we'll look at some ways that they can be a little more adaptable as well as we go along. So just to open things up, we've got 8 modules that we have created here. The first 4 modules really focus on safety and fundamentals. The second set focus on fact checking and verification, and dig just a little bit deeper. We start with how you stay safe online, some basics of sorting fact from opinion, looking at reputable sources, primary and secondary sources, defining journalism, in the world where anyone can post or publish anything. What exactly is journalism? Who is a journalist? What qualifies across the board as reporting versus posting? And then we lead into some of the more advanced topics of where you can find accurate information, how information spreads. We have a specific module on AI, and then we close with the module on sharing responsibly with friends and family, and sharing sharing and sharing responsibly can really be a key component here in what we communicate to our audiences, because this is really obviously how misinformation spreads. In other words, misinformation being false information that someone is sharing because they believe that it is true. So focusing really on responsible citizenship and responsible investigation prior to sharing with friends and family is extremely key. And we generally, I like to close the modules out with this because I think it's a landing point that all of our users and participants should end on. These are not clearly delineated between introductory and advanced or anything like that. Again, with the design of the toolkit, this is really something that can be used as a suite of modules 1 through 8 that you could work your way through. It's also designed to be used a la carte, where if you have already got existing programming on online safety, you might find that some of that first module is quite repetitive and unnecessary because you already have something in your community that you're using with that. And you might be looking to just jump right into the definitions of journalism in module 4. Again, these are all designed to work together yet stand alone. So again, for that versatility, we're hoping that you find that you're able to take what you like or need and leave what you might not feel is necessary for your community. Inside of the toolkit, you have a facilitator's guide. We'll take a look at that briefly, and I'll show you a few key elements of that. There is a folder of image files, and you have a sample of those on the right. They're designed to be kind of high interest, high impact, some different images and slides that you would be able to use on social media, on your websites for promotion of the toolkit, or just to grab a little bit of attention. Also ones that could be printed out very easily. We have a promotional bookmark, and all of these are kind of are lined up as a trio of block images for each module, and you could easily print those out as promotional material as well, or as just quick hit educational resources for the patron who approaches the circulation desk with a question and might not be willing or able to sit down for an entire module of learning, but you could have those images and those references handy for quick hits of educational resource for passersby, if you will. So those are all enclosed as individual files, image files, PDFs, and you are welcome to use and reproduce and do with as is useful for you. Inside of each of the 8 modules in the toolkit, there is an open educational resource webpage. There is an accompanying slide deck that contains essentially the same information on the OER page in presentation format. Within both of those resources, we have conversation starters with some suggested answers and guides, so that as you're working through that, and we'll see an example of this in a moment, when we start having the conversations with those conversation starters, if it's a topic or area that you might even not be as comfortable discussing or approaching, we've got some background and some context within those conversation starters to help you get the ball rolling and get things moving. Within each of the modules, we have some interactive activities. They are fully interactive on the OER pages. They're repeated in, obviously they don't have the same interactivity on the slide decks designed for an in-person presentation that could be done as a group activity on those presentations. And we'll see how that looks also. And then, of course, key terms and vocabulary with the little drag and drop matching activity at the end of each to reinforce vocabulary that goes, terms and vocabulary that go along with each. So let's take a look under the hood and really see what's in there. We'll spend a little bit of time with each of these, and we'll walk through and take a look at them. And then hopefully that will leave us some time to answer general questions, give you some time to poke through, and then get our post-test here to see how effective this is looking for you. We'll look at the facilitator's guide for a few minutes. We'll look at the slideshow of module 5, where can you find accurate information? And then we'll look at the OER webpage of module 7. How do you know it's not AI? And I'll do a brief walkthrough of the presentation model of what each of those would look like. So we'll start with the facilitator's guide. This is just a fairly short document with a couple of key links and additional references, and also some useful tips and hints for how to implement this. A lot of this is what you're hearing in this presentation, so I will obviously not read it and repeat the same things you're seeing in this presentation to you, but it is here handy in case you need to go back and reference, or if there's something that I mentioned early on that slipped your mind, it will be in here, and this information will be at your fingertips. So again, some documents that explain it, and a quick shout out. I know we have some of our advisory board who sat through several different iterations, providing really valuable feedback and oversight. So that shout out is here to begin to our advisory board that helped us with this. A little bit of context on what is contained in here, which we've already discussed, and a little bit of implementation option, which we will discuss. I do want to take a brief moment to stop on the note on teaching with examples. This resource we dropped in here because you will see that we have a lot of examples, some sample videos, some additional material, some of our team fact checks, and we also know that every audience, every community is going to respond and react differently to different examples. We believe very strongly that as the boots on the ground, I know this as a classroom educator myself, a lot of prepackaged material that's been created for us to use and implement in our communities, it might not hit the mark the way that it needs to. And you know your communities significantly better than we do. With that said, we encourage you to select and use material and examples that are relevant to your community. But as fact checkers, we also understand that it can be very difficult to find resources and material and information that will meet the needs of examples that we're using in our instruction. So we included a little bit of a tip sheet on getting started with finding examples and material. It's oftentimes very good to use an example of misinformation and how we can sort that and detect it. But oftentimes, like I say, it's challenging for you to find those examples yourself, and especially we don't want to indirectly share misinformation or continue the spread of misinformation. So we've included this tip sheet, and number 4, don't be afraid to work backwards, is my key advice to any user who's looking to build a library of information, or I should say misinformation examples that you'll be able to work through with an audience. And I, quite frankly, do this plenty of times as I'm building educational resources. I start at the end. I go to the fact checkers. I find the current and high interest and relevant to my community facts and information, and I will pull those up. And I will use those original examples of misinformation and walk forward with my audience, knowing that I've got the end result that I need, which is that finished fact check. The other benefit to using information that's being fact checked is if it is a reliable fact-checking organization, we don't have to engage in a conversation of are fact checkers biased or unbiased or any of those things, because what we're actually using is the content they're presenting, and a legitimate fact checker will always include links to their sources, their research, and their evidence. And that's the information that we're able to then build in with our audience as we're teaching this material. So I always like to go in and see what the fact checkers are looking at right now and what's relevant to the audience that I am working with. And I, again, encourage that for you, especially if you're downloading the slide decks and you see something that looks like it might hit your audience in a way that could alienate them. We made this material adaptable for that specific reason. Our goal is to bring people in and engage them with media literacy. It is not to alienate, to separate, or to divide, or to cause them to want to turn away. So I highly encourage you, number one, to preview the examples that are included. We try to stay, it's an interesting, and you'll find this as you're selecting material as well, it can be an interesting conundrum, because we do want to stay in the real world. We want relevant, we want things that users and audiences will connect with and will relate to. But then, of course, we also want to, again, keep from alienating the audience. So you will see things within our material that will look at some politics, voting, some of those potentially divisive issues. So I encourage you to look through those, and I encourage you to, refer to this document here if you're looking to replace material with either location or audience specific examples. So that is in the facilitator's guide for you to use. All of this is publicly posted on the toolkit, so anybody can see it, but you've got that there for your use. And then because there is so much going on here, and because there is so much information, there is a lot packed into this toolkit. We did create a couple of charts that can help you when you're looking for that quick grab. Hey, I've got a middle school group coming in for some research projects that they're doing, and I want to also talk about primary and secondary sources in a more current context. We've got the charts here that can kind of help you see which of the modules will have relevant information for you. So you know that if you're looking to tag some of this content along with some existing program, you can jump right to module 3 to include some of the primary versus secondary sources. So again, this facilitator's guide is designed to help you make heads and tails of, quite frankly, a very thick and very content-rich toolkit here. A couple of further resources, and something that I'd like to point out while we're here, that the ALA has some phenomenal tools that were, quite frankly, very useful for me in developing this toolkit, and I think very useful for anybody to use in conjunction with this toolkit: the Media Literacy in the Library and Media Literacy for Adults, Architecture of Internet Programming Guide, and the Guide for Library Practitioners. These are two, I would two pieces that work very well in tandem with this toolkit. So all information and resources that I think will be useful for you as you look at how you might develop programming in your library with this toolkit. And with that, we will take a look at the functionality and how it actually looks. So we'll start with module 5. And I'd like to run through the slide deck with you very quickly and show you what it looks like. You'll see that you can download and use a copy of this slide deck, again, so that if you have examples that you want to drop in, if you want to include this with other programming, it gives you the facility to do that. It makes it a little bit easier. So you can open up and grab these slide decks. But I'd like to show you what they look like as a complete presentation if you did want to arrange this as an in-house event where you used this content as a standalone presentation. So we would start with where you can find accurate information, and we could walk through our learning objectives of understanding why some people share false and misleading information, where and how misinformation can surface online, how to detect misinformation, and once again, as I promised, we did not hear the end of those 3 questions to ask that can help you discern fact from fiction. You'll notice I'll call your attention to some of the functionalities here as we're walking through here. We have the Restart Lesson tab, which runs throughout. This was dropped in there in case you did decide to use sort of a carousel or learning Nook kind of procedure as you're running through this. So you could set these up as standalones so that somebody could walk their way through them on a device and just go through the slideshows themselves and have a little bit of control over how they move through them. So we can start with some of these discussion posts. We won't open a whole discussion in the interest of time, but you'll see that the discussion starters are designed to get people talking, whether it's in small groups, whether it's through a whole group instruction, or even if it's through an online delivery or an asynchronous delivery. And these are just some of the questions that we would want participants to be thinking about as we engage with this material, activating prior knowledge, priming the pump, if you will, for our participants to be ready to be thinking about these bigger topics. So some of the things that would be perhaps relevant to them in their real lives: your grandmother, your great aunt, your niece or nephew, somebody close to you shared something that's kind of suspicious. How do we go about approaching that? How do we look at it? And then looking at some of the key terms that we'll be introducing, like misinformation and disinformation. These are things that these are Apologize. These are questions that you can use in discussion. These are questions that you can briefly move through, or questions that, frankly, if you feel they're not necessary in your presentation, you do not have to open up a discussion, but they are there for your use if you would like. So we have videos that are designed for different groups. I would also encourage you to look through these, and again, knowing your audience and knowing your community better than I ever could, of course, I would recommend looking at the different videos and different selections and seeing what you think might meet the needs of your community. As the young adult videos are generally hosted by our teen fact checkers, which is why we drop them in with the young adult category. But I'll be quite honest, there's some really great material that adults could use as well. And again, if you're working with older adults, then you might want to use some of the videos that are hosted by Joan London or some of our ambassadors that would appeal more to an older audience. But if you're working with young adults or even moving into the 20s and 30s, it's really up to you to decide which videos you would most be interested in using or introducing. And honestly, they're all a little bit different, so it can be useful to even look at more than one of them if you find some that you like. So throughout here are a series of different videos that MediaWise has produced for different projects and different different reasons. So I'd like us to take a look at the For Adults video, because it gives us, once again, a good overview of our 3 questions. And if you notice that I'm hammering them home, I am. And I think that, I want you to walk away with a great understanding of the toolkit, but I'm also hoping that you'll have those 3 questions sitting in the back of your mind. So when you're having interactions with your patrons, and you need to have that conversation of, why can I trust this, or why can't I trust this? These 3 questions can pop right up. So I'm hoping that you're also able to walk away with those. So let's take a look at the For Adults video that I think would be applicable for probably just about any age.
When you surf the internet, there's a lot of information to navigate through. That includes waves of social media posts, images, videos, and news articles. But while you're surfing the web, you may encounter danger, such as misinformation. But don't be afraid. The Stanford History Education Group developed 3 questions you can use to avoid false information online. Who is behind the information? Do some research to find out if they are an expert in what they are sharing, or see if they are biased or have shared false posts in the past. What is the evidence? Check if they include links to credible sources. What are other sources saying? Open tabs and search using keywords to find news articles about the topic, and make sure you have the full context of the video, photo, or post. Anyone of any age can sort fact from fiction online by using these 3 questions. When you surf the internet, do not let misinformation you see spill into your real-life decisions. Navigate the internet with caution, and always verify information before you share.
All right, and as you can see, we have a range of material that repeats a lot of these same elements in different forms and different ways, so that we really can, like I say, target all audiences and all ages. You'll note that as you move through, and I think I've got another video coming in our next example, so that you can kind of see the age range. We have a material from, like I say, Joan London, who is one of our MediaWise ambassadors. We actually have one more new video that's going to be a surprise creep up that's in production literally as we speak, that will be popping into this toolkit that she recorded for us, again, to appeal to that broad age range. But I do recommend reviewing this material for your specific audience and looking at which material you feel will best hit the audience that you are addressing at the time. I do want to take note that we've got complimentary video material in Spanish from our MediaWise and Espanol program as well, so that we have that information, that resource there also. As we move through this, after we look at those 3 critical questions that we want to keep in mind as we're looking at types of false information, we look to define misinformation. We mentioned earlier today in this session that misinformation itself is information that people share because they think or believe that it might be useful to friends or family members, and they might share it without verifying whether it's based on facts or not, but they don't necessarily share it with ill intent. Whereas disinformation is something that a bad actor online will create with the knowledge that the information is false and with the intention of making money, changing your mind, gaining clout, influencing people in a specific way. So looking at those primary definitions of misinformation and disinformation, perhaps opening up to discuss that a little bit so that we can clarify and understand that there is a distinction between myself or my cousin who posted this online because they feel really strongly and passionately about this, and an institution or organization that is creating information and perhaps paying to have it spread and looking to again, make money, change your mind, gain clout, or have a negative influence. Looking at how misinformation can spread, I pull a couple examples of some posts, again, looking for something slightly apolitical, right? But this could be somewhere where if you are talking about an election season misinformation, you might want to drop an example here that does match up with something that aligns with voting or, whatever topic might be of most interest to your community at the time. We pulled this news coming out where fairly recently we had a whole bunch of internet hype over the deadly fungus taking over America. And so we pick apart posts like this so that we can show that first and foremost, posts that evoke strong emotions are one of our first red flags. Disinformers leverage that. Misinformers will make a lot of mistakes with sharing because you see something, it grabs your attention, it makes you angry, it makes you feel strongly, and you'll hit that share button faster because of the distraction of the emotion that comes in with it. So rather than saying, there is a fungal infection that has turned up in hospitals, a deadly fungus taking over America, looking at that weighted emotional language and really staying aware of the fact that when we see weighted or emotional language, that's a good indication to pause. Also seeing cross-posted content, something where we'll see a screenshot of a Facebook post that someone puts on Instagram, or a screenshot of a TikTok post that's dropped onto Facebook, things like that. Cross-posted content means that it's divorced from the original source. There is no link, there is no direct or initial way to access that original source and verify it. So that's a huge red flag. It also could indicate that it's been modified from where it might have been originally posted, or it could even have been fabricated entirely. So cross-posted content, something that we take we keep a close eye on and consider that a red flag for investigation. And videos in general, when we're looking at the videos that are shared online, a lot of them are short, a lot of them can be screenshots or short sections of videos that can very easily be taken out of context. Again, a screenshot from a very real news item from the Today Show about the CDC warning of a deadly fungal infection hits differently when it's paired with a headline that says deadly fungus taking over America. So we might have a real video and a real video story. A lot of times an audience is going to say, that's the Today Show. That's a report from the Today Show. I know these anchors. I trust that source. This has to be real. And so they'll conflate those two, the fake emotional headline with that video clip that might have been taken out of context. So we keep a very close eye that if there is a video, we want to go upstream and find that original video source. Another piece is looking at lack of sources and memes. The lack of sources is something we should always be suspicious of. Again, we've got Candida auris, what is the deadly fungus sweeping through the US hospitals? Looks like an official headline, looks like something we can trust, and we can pair it with this meme that makes us laugh. Who had the mutant super fungus for March? Ha ha ha. But it's something that can misdirect us into sharing or believing misinformation. And memes, especially when we talk about eliciting an emotional response, memes do elicit an emotion, that emotion of humor, laughter, joy. That can be an emotional response that can then trigger us to share something that might not be accurate. We'll talk a little bit about, and again, I'm aware of the time and see that we have a lot of people who are budgeting, have a certain budget of time here. So we talk a lot about the fact that grains of truth are evident in so many things. If you saw the Stanley Cup has lead in it, that was something that blew up on TikTok. Everybody stopped drinking from your Stanley Cups immediately. They contain lead. It can be poisonous. There is the grain of truth in there that there is a certain amount of lead used in a certain amount of sealant underneath a sealed part of the bottom of the Stanley Cup, et cetera, et cetera. It does not pose a health hazard. So there's oftentimes a grain of truth and misinformation that we can be keeping an eye on. And as we move through other sections of the toolkit, as a matter of fact, we talk about the truth sandwich, which is in sharing with friends and family, a way of presenting the misinformation sandwiched by the correct information so that we can prevent its spread, and so that we can also contextualize the misinformation with the correct information and perhaps those grains of truth. We have an activity that goes along with this. If we were all in person, there are so many of us here, but if we were all in person here, we would pull up a social media post of your finding, or perhaps one that you've used this toolkit guide to find a piece that you would like to have your audience research. Have them ask these questions and work through it in teams or individually and share out those answers. Who is behind the information? What's the evidence? What are other sources saying? Find answers to all of those questions with a live piece of information that you could work through. And then this is a very quick fill in the blank for you that is available. It's also on the OER, the Open Educational Resources. A lot of the other ones are a little more robust than this, but again, hammering that home. Who is behind the, I wish I could hear you all calling it out with me, information? What is the evidence, and what do other sources say? And these end all of our modules just to reinforce those ideas. So we have our key takeaways there, and that takes us to the end of one of the slide decks again that could be used as a kiosk module that you have standalone in your library. It could be used as a live presentation, many different ways. I'm excited as we get to the end to actually see some of the creative ways that you all come up with, because I'm sure that there will be some things I never thought of that you could do with this that will work. We'll take a quick look at our How Do You Know It's Not AI OER. This is the Open Educational Resource page, if you have not dug into those web pages already. Very similar to the slide decks in the way that they're built and the way that they are they're constructed, but just a little bit different presentation and a little bit more interactivity. So we see the definitions of some of our key terms. Again, we've got our videos here that you can move through to see which will be most applicable to you. Conversation starters. We have the instructional material here as copy. We kept it fairly short so that we would be keeping our attention. Some interactive activities. This has a spoiler because you are all here with me, so you know which one is not AI. I had to just like steal my moment in the spotlight, but there I am, the real person. But we can move through, participants can move through and select these, and we get the explanations for what makes, by the way, all 4 of these others are not our friends. These are all AI generated people. The only real one is me right here. So very interesting and quite an eye-opener for a lot of participants, because they expect at least a couple of these to be real, and some pretty convincing ones. The videos walk through the reverse image search skill and strategy. That's one of our primary lessons to move along with AI. And in the interest of our time, I want to move through reverse image search. We won't demonstrate that here. The videos all do demonstrate it though. So it's a very handy, watch the video with your patrons and move through it step by step. But one of our key takeaways, and I know that AI is such a hot topic here, and I want to really hammer this one home for us on AI. The most important piece, I think, that we are communicating right now, frankly, is that we have to be cautious and aware with AI, because we don't have all of the answers yet. And it's okay for us to say that, because this is an ever-changing and very quickly changing technology. Reverse image search, just quite frankly, closely investigating an image is a great way to look and determine whether an image may or may not be artificial intelligence or generative AI. But at the end of the day, we know this as librarians, as library workers, as teachers, we know that detecting text and information, we do not have an AI detector that's going to be able to tell us, was this generated by AI? We don't have anything reliable or dependable out there yet that can definitively give us those answers. So it's about being careful. It's about using those three questions. Who's behind the information? What is the evidence? What are other sources saying? It's about applying those fact-checking skills to any information that we come across online. And at the end of the day, we may or may not be able to definitively say this is AI, this is artificial intelligence, but it does not mean we need to be afraid of generative AI as a whole. So we talk in this module about artificial intelligence as spell checker, as that thing that goes beep, 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 beep when I put my turn signal on and there's a car in my blind spot. We talk about the fact that AI is part of our everyday lives already, that generative AI is quickly becoming a regular part of our lives, and it is uncomfortable and scary, believe me. But we also talk about the fact that if we are cautious, if we are careful, and if we develop the normal media literacy skills that we have developed with investigating anything that we question, we are able to stay protected, immune from the threat of AI as much as possible. So the AI section there, and I'm sure to be continued, as I say, I'm sure to be continued as we continue to learn and as new developments continue to present themselves. This is a very quick run through, again, in the interest of our time and in respect for your time, very quick run through of the OER, but I'd like you all to be able to just sort of see it, scroll through so that you can see that this is something that someone could really sit on their own at home or in the library with to get all of this information on their own independently. These are links that you could just share out on your website so that all of this toolkit material is available to the general public, whether you have the bandwidth or capacity to put together specific programming or not. Even putting together a campaign, a misinformation information campaign that directs to this material is something that your library patrons would be able to access and use, and have unlimited access to all of this material, even if you are not able to put something together for specific programming. There are 8 of those modules, the slide decks and OERs that come with them, that you can, like I say, use and implement in many different ways. We'll run back to some suggested uses. And like I say, as the authorities and the professionals and the experts, I know that you have probably far more creative ideas than I do, but we suggest online research, a sponsored or promoted event, day-long event or single session event, doing a kiosk setup, as I might have mentioned, if you have devices, even an iPad or tablet that you could set out that people could move through, group presentations, or a la carte additions to existing program. Just some of the implementation options or ideas that we hope you're able to use with this toolkit. We hope it has that versatility for you and that it's something meaningful and useful for your library and for your community. We are just coming up on time here, so I will close this with any other ideas that you might want to throw out there. We're happy to hear them. If you have any questions at all, if you run into any blocks, if you run into any concerns, thoughts, observations, and especially if you implement this program, we would absolutely love to hear about it. We would love to amplify the work that you're doing with this toolkit, because we know there are great things. And like I say, I'm sure there are some wonderful, amazing, creative things that you all will be able to do with this as well. So thank you so much for your time and attention. Thank you for your patience with our surveys and seminars. And it was just an absolute pleasure and honor for me to be here today with you all. So to wrap things up, we do have the post survey. If you're able to take that, we would greatly appreciate it, to now take a look at how effective this seminar or this webinar was for you. So the link is there, and we'll drop the link again in the chat in just a moment. And after that survey, I will gladly stick around for a while to answer any questions that anybody wants to drop into the Q&A, or questions that I might have missed. And thank you again so much for your time.
Yeah, I would like to jump in and thank you, Sean, for the wonderful introduction to the toolkit. And thank you everyone for being here and participating in the webinar. I apologize for the technical issues encountered for the pre-survey. On the toolkit question, I have double checked for the post-survey and to ensure it's clear and working correctly. And you should be able to skip any questions freely. Yeah, just a note that at the beginning, you will be asked for a birthday, which is used for solely to link your pre and post survey answers and to maintain your anonymity. And we know that your time is like very valuable, and we greatly appreciate your input and feedback to help us understand the effectiveness of the survey. Yeah, thank you very much for taking the survey. Yeah.
Thank you. So thanks, John, for a great presentation. We do have a few questions that have come up throughout the session. So the first question is about the graphics. Are there going to be non-English versions of those available?
That is a really good question, and I will have to take that back to the team and determine if we're able to do that. I would love to be able to do that, though. So I will definitely take that back, and if we're able to do it, look for an announcement that would be coming. Yes, thank you. So I appreciate that feedback and hope we're able to make it happen.
Great, thanks. The other question is just if you've heard of Ground News and if you would also recommend them as a fact-checking site.
So Ground News, not one that I use regularly. There are so many out there, and I don't want to cast aspersions on just because I have not particularly used them or looked at them. I will do some quick lateral reading on them and see, what the reputation is, where they sort of land, what other sources are saying about them. I won't do that live and in person here right now, but not one that I have regularly used. I will mention that, and this is a full disclosure. One of Pointer's other organizations is the International Fact Checking Network. They have a signatory program that is global. I will tend to look at if specifically fact-checking outlet. It doesn't look like Ground News is as fact-checking specifically, but I do look to see if they are IFCN signatories. That's something that helps me to determine when I'm looking at fact-checking organizations if they've gone through that process and are sort of part of the larger fact-checking world. It is always something to keep a really close eye on. This is an international kind of thing, but I was working with a group of Armenian journalists a couple weeks ago, and it's very interesting because in their journalism world, there are actually a couple of organizations that have very specifically sprouted up, calling themselves fact checkers and using that label to advance misinformation and disinformation. So super important that we're doing that homework and that well, actually, I would say groundwork to investigate these sources really, really carefully. So I cannot say that I have used it, but certainly wouldn't cast any aspersions because I can't speak to their authority.
All right, thank you. The other question that I see in the chat, and for those of you who are still with us, feel free to type your questions in either the chat or the Q&A feature. The question is, what age group are these materials meant for, or are they meant for everyone?
So they are really, they are designed to target all age groups. And in that, I do believe, and I want to really just very clearly state that I think you'll find that you'll look at one of the videos that's targeted for the adult audience and say, wow, this is really geared towards an older adult audience, more senior citizens. Adult is the 18 to, however, hopefully 110 years old. So, we really tried to group and categorize the information and the content in a way that would be most effective for you. But kind of as I mentioned, I really encourage you to look at your audience, your community that you'll be working with, and look at the material, especially if you're doing live presentations, look at the material that we've provided and really determine which is most suitable for your audience, right? There might be some that you feel is just in the young adult audience might be just a little bit, or perhaps we know that we have an audience that just frankly will not appreciate being told by a teenager how to do fact checking. So we might not want to use that particular video that's run by one of our teen fact checkers. So again, the material is designed to be broad, to be to have enough widely available material that you can cater it to any age group. And we've given those sort of suggested age ranges with some of those video tabs.
Great, thank you. So that was the last question that I saw. If you all had a question that I missed, feel free to post that in the chat in order to flag it for our attention. Otherwise, I just want to say thank you all for joining us today on this presentation, and as well as Pointer and Stanford for presenting, particularly Sean and Fajing. Thank you so much. And I have seen quite a few questions about if we will get a link to the recorded presentation. Yes, you will. We will send that as a follow-up, probably within 24 to 48 hours to everyone who registered for the event.
And thank you again to the ALA, and again to all of the library workers and folks who have come in to stay with this. I'm just very honored to be in your presence with you all and being able to share this with you. Definitely feels like a birthday for me with this project finally coming out. So.
And I see we did get another question. So do you have additional suggestions for ways to gamify media and misinformation literacy for teens and tweens?
For gamification, that's a really good I don't have specific gamified resources. As somebody who comes from secondary education myself, everything becomes a game for me, even if it's just setting up a competition of investigating a source, using some of these different modules where you're going to see the Stanley Cup example. Let's see who can get to the Stanley Cup answer the quickest. Some of those in-person things, just even where it's putting teams together to kind of look at this material, evaluate the material, and come back with it. It's actually something that we are really looking at developing, and I am really keen on putting together like an escape room, breakout room. Those things are so much fun. I've done some before for unrelated themes and topics. It's something that can easily be done with some of this material, and if you do it, share it with me. I have to see it. Could easily be done with this type of material because we can be looking for certain codes. Where was this picture actually? What city was this picture actually taken in? Can be the code to kind of open up the lock to, whether it's a virtual physical lock or anything like that. I am very big on those types of ideas, and I think they can be super interactive and fun, and they can be done digitally or oh, somebody dropped in the Dallas Public Library's Misinformation Escape Room. Oh, I love it. I'm going to check that out as soon as we end this. But I think that's really one of a big way to go, because just giving that challenge and that that anticipation, I think, really hits that audience. Yeah. And then I would also say involving them in the process is probably one of the biggest things. That teen fact-checking network material, it's not necessarily gamified, but it's real, right? And being able to see the teen fact-checkers doing the work, you would definitely have participants who are seeing themselves on screen doing the work that they could be doing. So when I've engaged with teenage audiences and with younger audiences, I think one of those biggest keys for me is to step aside and let the teenagers do the talking, and let them do the modeling of this material and of these procedures, and then let our participants then create their own fact checks in the style of the Teen Fact Checking Network. And again, there's nothing, as we all know, nothing speaks more to a young person especially than seeing someone who represents them up there doing what they could be doing themselves as well, and then inviting them to do it. So
yeah, I will also share that we have, as part of the architecture of the internet guide for media literacy, that article about what Dallas did with their misinformation escape room is also included in that, along with some other programs that might be a little bit more gamification that libraries have done around that. And yes, escape rooms are a huge trend in libraries. As Stacy just posted, there's also a Misinfo escape room from University of Wisconsin iSchool. Micah has a question about, for those who are attending For those who are needing a certificate of attendance for the session, will there be one sent out? So you can request one by emailing publicprograms@ala.org, and we will send you a certificate of completion. And Stacy just correct me, not Wisconsin, University of Washington. Thank you. Not seeing any other questions. So one more push to please complete the post-webinar survey. It really helps us. And the email again for that certificate is publicprograms@ala.org, and I will also put it in the chat. So thank you once again for everyone for attending this session, and to Sean and Beijing for all your work on the presentation. And I will go ahead and end the session here. Be on the lookout for a follow-up email with a link to the recording, as well as a link to the PowerPoint of today's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.